next speaker, who is somebody who may even be thought of as Mr. Cryonics himself, Ben Best, who has been involved in cryonics rather a long time and has a vast knowledge of different aspects of cryonics. So where did the microphone go? Are we going to give one to Ben? Ben is going to talk mainly from the point of view of giving us an update of what's happening with cryonics in Canada. And just to let you know what's happening, after Ben speaks, we're going to have Stanislav, who's going to give us an update about cryonics in Russia. So Ben Best, here's the microphone, over to you.
All right. So the biggest news in the last year really is in April 1990, the province of British Columbia in Canada passed the only anti-cryonics law that's ever been passed in any jurisdiction in the world that I know of. And it's a Cemetery and Funeral Services Act, Section 14. So I give a complete quotation of what the Section 14 says, and it does say the word cryonics is used in there, and I know some ridiculous other concepts by these ignorant bureaucrats who dreamed up this way of protecting the public from cryonics, from the idea that vulnerable people are being exploited and misled, and that this is pseudoscience and so forth. Anyway, I had conversations with the bureaucrats who drew this thing up because I got very involved very early. Anyway, this last year, the Lifespan Society of British Columbia decided to try to fight this legislation, and they got a grant from the Life Extension Foundation to do that. And so they were, the Lifespan Society of Canada, it should be British Columbia, I don't know why I wrote Canada. Lifespan Society of British Columbia contracted with this cryonicist Keegan McIntosh to provide cryonic services to challenge Section 14 as being against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And this case was going to go to court in June of this year. But the government, for some reason, approached the I don't know why they didn't want to go to court, but they approached the Lifespan Society with a letter saying that this contract was the contract was legal, but or would be affirmed. It wouldn't be challenged by the government. And the reasoning was that Keegan McIntosh knew about the science, he knew about the prospect of cryonics, and that no vulnerable persons were being taken advantage of. And so the lawyers for the Lifespan Society recommended accepting this letter on the understanding that anybody else, any other knowledgeable cryonicist would get the same exemption. So it was a legal victory in a sense, but not as good as actually repealing the law, challenging it on the basis of being unconstitutional. Many people have, or at least people, my boss at the Life Extension Foundation celebrated this as being a victory. So it is a victory for being able to practice it, but not quite as good as actually challenging it as being a violation of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now, another big thing in Canada, this was a few years ago, was the physician-assisted suicide was legalized. But consent must be repeatedly expressed by the person wanting this physician-assisted suicide, including right at the moment just prior to death. It's never been used as a cryonics case. I'm a little afraid of it being used. Many people in the cryonics movement look forward to the idea of being able to choose your moment of death and not having to die at an unpredictable moment. People are even talking about building a facility in Switzerland to do this. And actually, the Oregon Cryonics, which our previous speaker didn't mention, which has a few patients, all neuros, actually has a hospice right in the Oregon Cryonics facility, so that and because Oregon has already had this physician-assisted suicide possibility, and so they're already prepared for doing this in Oregon. And my fear is this is going to animate the feelings of these of the pro-lifers, the same kind of people who bomb abortion clinics, on the belief that cryonics is pseudoscience, and this is a way of inducing people to kill themselves when there's no prospect that it's going to help them. So anyway, I think this is a very frightening issue in a sense for the possible backlash against cryonics it could create. We're actually trying to save people's lives with cryonics, but if people think it's pseudoscience, we're thinking they're hastening people's death. So it's a touchy subject. Now, the Suspended Animation Incorporated operates in the United States. It offers standby stabilization and transport services to Alcor and Cryonics Institute for members in the continental USA. So Canada being close to United States, Canadians have felt fairly deprived of SST services. But within the last couple years, the International Cryomedicine Experts Organization has been created, formed by Aaron Drake and Eric Vaught to offer SS services worldwide. Now, as a couple of words about Aaron Drake, if you don't know, he was the medical. He was worked for Alcor for many years as the frontline person in conducting SST, and most recently, as our previous speaker mentioned, there's the Yin Feng. He was hired, paid $250,000 a year to leave Alcor and work at Yin Feng and just sort of build their cryonics facility up from the ground. They now have 4 patients, and I don't know exactly what it costs to cryopreserve these people, but they have to pay $100,000 a year to be maintained in liquid nitrogen, because cryonics is everybody has to be cremated in China, and the only way they can justify this practice is by saying it's medical research or research of some kind, and pay $100,000 a year for ongoing storage. Anyway, anyway. Aaron Drake has an enormous amount of experience with cryonics, and so ICE now has contracts with Alcor and the Cryonics Institute, and the first cryonics case that ICE assisted with was in January of this year. So that was a big breakthrough. So I want to say something about Christine Gasper. She is the president of the Cryonics Society of Canada, and she's a Cryonics Institute member in the Toronto area. And Toronto has the most active cryonics group in Canada. She's actually an emergency medicine nurse and currently employed by Alcor to write case reports. She was previously on the front lines when anyway, she's had a lot of experience with, I don't know, as an emergency medicine nurse, she sort of was attracted to blood and guts cases. And anyway, now she's working with Alcor, and she stores the Alcor kit and CI kits on her farm. And she arranged for an Alcor training in Toronto of 2014. And she assisted with the Alcor ice case that happened in Ottawa, Canada, in January 2018. And she's currently, at this very weekend, giving an SST training to the Lifespan Society of British Columbia members in the Vancouver area. So there's Christine. And there's Aaron Drake in 2014 delivering the Alcor training. And that was when he was still working with Alcor. And there I am looking over his shoulder. And that's another picture of the training. And one more picture. So I guess another thing I should say is I was very instrumental. I was one of the people who assisted in getting the Cryonics Society of Canada incorporated in 1988, and I've I was president of the Cryonics, before Christine Gasper took over, I was president of the Cryonics Society of Canada for at least a decade, and I'm still, I created the Cryonics Society of Canada website, and I'm still supporting it. I just donated, I've donated space on my virtual private server to maintain the website. And so anyway, to build cryonics in Canada from about 1990 to onward, or actually 1988 onward, I went to just about every meeting I could go to give a presentation on cryonics. You know, the Mensa Society and just any humanists and any group that would allow me to give a presentation about cryonics in Toronto, I would go to. And I also went to health fairs. I rented booths in health fairs and also science fiction conventions, any venue I could find. And in that way, I believe I helped to build a nucleus of cryonics activity in the Toronto area. I think Toronto probably has one of the most active cryonics groups of any city in the world. And so I'm pleased to have done that. Anyway, one of the presentations I made, a fellow Bruce Waugh, a lawyer who was active in active in the Life Extension Foundation, who was an Alcor member, said, "Why don't we have summer parties? At my pool in my backyard." And so we started doing that. I think about 1993. And so then it's become an annual event in Toronto, is these potluck summer parties. And I've been there every year. Every year I go there and give a presentation updating what's happened in the world of cryonics. And so that's what I did last year. Well, anyway, there's a previous, a couple years ago, summer party, not really big. We get maybe 10 to 15 people at these parties, or maybe 20, I guess 20 at the last party. So anyway, that's just a picture of the parties, and we have a good time. And it sort of helps build a spirit, and we do a lot of networking. Actually, this fellow in the middle there, and we've been, he helped with another cryonics case. In 2003, or 2002, we had the first cryonics case in the Toronto area, and I helped. I had an ice bath and so forth, and I was on the scene to preserve this person, and since then there've been more cases. More cases in the Toronto area, and this fellow in the middle helps giving heart what we call CPS. Instead of cardiopulmonary resuscitation, we call it cardiopulmonary support. But he and the fellow who sponsored this party were very active in helping giving chest compressions to this person who had been declared dead and was being cooled. So anyway, that's my update on the Canadian cryonics situation.
It's good to see the social aspect there too, building a community.